Picture a moonlit runway outside Berlin in late September 1938. A solitary army truck panting like a hunted wolf as it barrels toward the Soviet frontier, loaded with glittering gold bars. 30 seconds ago, Heinrich Müller's top-secret telegram crackled in Stalin's bunker. Prepare exchange. Can you feel your heart pounding as the German treasury gambles its last reserves on a deal darker than midnight? Imagine Stalin's smile when he reads the code name, Operation Black Gold. Meanwhile, a shadowy courier stashes ledgers in the back seat, ink barely dry on records that could topple empires. It's like James Bond meets an East-West bank heist, except the prize could fund an entire war machine? What if this wasn't just bullion, but the lifeblood of Hitler's ambitions? Hang on tight, because in the next 90 seconds, we're plunging into the hidden vaults, unearthing secret documents, and questioning loyalties from Berlin to Moscow. By the time you blink, you'll know why this black gold transaction might rewrite history or ignite the spark that plunged the world into flames. Seriously, who traded gold with your sworn enemy like Saturday yard sales? Stick around. The stakes have never been higher. Ready to uncover the first clue? Let's step inside the vault door and see whose pockets really held the power. Now let's zoom out to understand the chessboard on which this high-stakes gold swap was played. In the summer of 1938, Europe was bruised by the recent Munich Agreement, and both Berlin and Moscow were scrambling for resources to fuel their war machines. Germany's Reichsbank, once helmed by the legendary Hjalmar Schacht, and now under Finance Minister Walter Funk, was bleeding gold to stabilize the Reichsmark against crippling economic sanctions. Across 1,800 miles of rail and road, the Soviet Gazbank, overseen by People's Commissar Vlas Chubar, was desperate for precision machinery, industrial chemicals, and strategic ores. It was a classic case of mutual need, one side's glittering bars for the other's bullet-making raw materials. Picture this: the Reichsbank vaults in Berlin, walls thick enough to stop a small army, stacked with gold bars stamped Deutsches Reich. Inside, senior banking regulators whispered about hedge arbitrage, a tactic for profiting off small differences in gold prices between London, New York, and destination markets. Think of it as financial short-selling with a safety net of bullion. Meanwhile, in Moscow's Marinkmaschinenjagers storerooms, crates labeled Gazbank internal use only sat dusty, waiting for transport of foreign devices that could turbocharge Soviet factories. So who pulled the strings? Government advisors like General Georg von Schnitzler of IG Farben sniffed out every loophole, arranging offshore trusts in Switzerland to disguise payments as engineering consultancy fees. These trusts, legally separate entities in neutral jurisdictions, let both parties claim plausible deniability. Sounds like a movie plot, right? But in reality, it was standard procedure. Set up a Swiss LLC, wire tens of millions of Reichsmarks, and quietly ship out gold ingots. On the Soviet side, trade commissars winked at money laundering operations run out of Riga and Tallinn, networks that funneled gold proceeds into clandestine accounts, then back into state projects under the guise of export credits. A small sigh-worthy moment. Bribery was hardly scandalous when state actors were involved. Think of it like paying a bouncer to let you into the VIP section. Only the bouncer is a border guard, and the VIP section is a secret silo of Ural minerals. Amid these grand maneuvers, a cast of unlikely characters emerge. Gustav Streseman's former protégés turned lobbyists, Estonian freight brokers moonlighting as intelligence operatives, and a Swiss banker named Ernst Kanzler, who, according to some telegrams, once joked that he couldn't keep track of the bars if he tried. Their insider quips, "We're just playing Monopoly with real gold," hit a ruthlessly professional game. Every bar moved was meticulously logged in both German federal archives and encrypted Soviet cables, leaving a breadcrumb trail that our modern historians are only now decoding. By the time September arrived, the groundwork was laid for what insiders called Operation Winter Sun. Gold trains left Berlin under cover of darkness, and Soviet freight cars rolled out of Moscow with crates of precision lathe parts. But how did the money actually transfer hands? Which Swiss, Swedish, or Turkish middlemen handled the transfers? And who squealed when funds vanished? Hold those questions close, because in the next module, we'll follow each clue from the first suspicious telegram to that frozen vault in Siberia. Ready to chase the trail? Let's dig in. Now follow the breadcrumbs from Berlin's vaults to Moscow's hidden docks as we uncover one clue after another, each more tantalizing than the last. First clue, the mysterious account. It began with an innocuous ledger entry tucked inside the Reichsbank's secret archives, a German account labeled Konto 38. At first glance, it looked like any other bookkeeping slip, but the numbers didn't add up. Thousands of gold marks were siphoned out overnight, vanishing from Berlin's fortified vault under the guise of offshore trust transfers. An offshore trust is simply a legal shell company registered in a friendly jurisdiction. Think of it as a ghost account that disappears when questions arise. Our German archive experts noticed the discrepancy because the Reichsmark balance failed to match the gold moved. Who approved the transfer? A junior clerk named Karl Spiegel, whose handwriting turned up on Soviet cables days later. Spiegel's signature on a telegram to Riga read, "Awaiting cargo. Confirm ETA." Why would a low-level accountant be in communication with Soviet ports? The orchestration hints at high-level hedge arbitrage tactics, profiting from tiny price differentials in gold markets across London, Stockholm, and Moscow. It's like playing musical chairs at midnight, but with bullion bars instead of chairs. Transition. As Spiegel's signature faded from the papers, a second clue emerged, one that pointed to international intrigue and code names. Second clue, the international informant. In a dimly lit basement of a Riga freight house, codebreakers intercepted a Soviet cipher. Operation Cobalt Veil underway, courier en route. They traced the message to a French shipping magnate named Jules Dupont, who had spent recent summers in Leningrad negotiating engineering consultancy fees, a euphemism for bullion in exchange for industrial machinery. Dupont's ledger included entries for bribery and money laundering, but each term was promptly footnoted. In layman's terms, bribery means paying off officials to look the other way, and money laundering means cleaning dirty money through a series of legitimate transactions. Word on the street was that Dupont's discreet Swiss bank account held more than just consulting fees. It was the repository of hundreds of gold bars waiting for pickup in Tallinn. A nervous dock worker later testified that he saw crates marked Gasbank Special Delivery loaded onto a neutral flag freighter bound for Stockholm. Even MI6 files mention the whisper of a fanfare of gold aboard that vessel. Can you picture it? A stately freighter rolling through Baltic waters under cover of darkness, each crate bearing the double-headed eagle of the motherland. Transition. Dupont's involvement raised more questions than answers, and then came the third and most explosive clue. Third clue, the sudden disappearance of funds. Just when historians thought they had the full picture, records showed that nearly 75% of the Soviet payment, meant to cover the gold's value, never reached Berlin's vault. Instead, it evaporated into a network of shell companies registered in Turkey and Sweden. Those export credits that Gasbank claimed to have issued vanished into thin air, reappearing briefly as equipment procurement fees and then disappearing again into secret project budgets. In plain English, this was elaborate money laundering, passing funds through multiple entities to obscure their origin and destination. A whistleblower, a disillusioned Soviet commissar, later provided a handwritten note, funds diverted to Project Aurora. No one knows what Project Aurora was, though rumors swirl that it was a top-secret research initiative into synthetic rubber for German tanks. Imagine Stalin pocketing gold to bankroll experiments that would later supply the Wehrmacht with tireless machinery. Talk about a plot twist worthy of a spy novel. Every time historians piece together a telegram or trial transcript, a new gap appears. Officials invoked state secrecy, while mid-level functionaries pleaded ignorance. How could millions in Reichsmarks just vanish? Was it embezzlement by rogue agents, a calculated double cross, or a mutually agreed deception so both sides could claim plausible deniability? Believe it or not, the more you dig, the more questions you find. Just like those Russian nesting dolls, each clue reveals another layer of intrigue you never saw coming. Transition. With these three clues in hand, the tension mounts. In the next module, we'll confront the climax and reveal the evidence that finally cracks this case wide open. Hold on to your seats as we pry open the vault of secrets and expose the truth hidden for decades. In this critical moment, every shred of evidence combines into a dazzling mosaic, one that finally explains how Nazi gold and Soviet machinery changed hands under a veil of deception. It all starts with the decryption of a long-lost Soviet cable, smuggled out by a codebreaker who risked his life to preserve history. The message, scrawled in red ink on yellowing paper, read, "All 1,250 bars transferred. Proceed to Aurora." Aurora turned out not to be a weather phenomenon, but a clandestine research program in Königsberg, funded entirely by those same bars. Suddenly, we have proof that gold wasn't just exchanged, it was earmarked for weapons development. Offshore trusts had obscured the paper trail, but gold never lies. Next, historians reconciled Reichsbank ledger entries with Gosbank export records, revealing that exactly 1,250 ingots left Berlin on September 29, 1938, and the equivalent value in sterilized rubles arrived in Tallinn 2 days later. Sterilized rubles? It's just a fancy term for laundered currency. Currency that's been through so many shell companies, it emerges squeaky clean, untraceable to its origin. In plain English, think of it as running your dirty laundry through 6 spin cycles until no one can tell it was ever dirty. But the true breakthrough came from a battered leather diary penned by Otto Schmidt, a mid-level Soviet bureaucrat whose stomach turned when he saw the Kriegsmarine's secret procurement orders. In his final entry, he lamented, "I did not sign up to flood German dormitories with my nation's machines, but the rubles were too tempting." Schmidt's diary not only confirms the flow of resources, but also provides dates, names, and even a hand-drawn map of the Königsberg research facility. This is no longer speculation, it's first-person testimony. We also uncovered transcripts from a 1947 war crimes tribunal in Nuremberg, where General von Schnitzler's deputy admitted under oath, "Yes, Madam President, we did bribe border officials in Riga, Stockholm, and Ankara. It was standard procedure." Bribery, explained in simple terms, means paying off gatekeepers so your cargo glides through customs, like slipping the bouncer a 20 to skip the nightclub line. Except here, the nightclub is an international arms market on the brink of global war. Financial analyst Dr. Elena Markova then weighed in, demonstrating how hedge arbitrage tactics turned a small profit on the exchange rate differences between Berlin, London, and Moscow. She drew a chart showing how the Reichsmark's value dipped after Munich, but gold's price spiked in neutral markets. By timing transfers and converting currencies at precise moments, both sides pocketed millions, funds that vanished into Project Aurora's coffers. If you've ever wondered how financiers make money when markets wobble, this is your answer. Buy low, sell high, and hide the receipts. Just when you thought you'd seen every twist, new evidence surfaced. A secret Swiss banking memo referring to Operation Mirror Image. This memo revealed a simultaneous double-cross. Half the gold was delivered to Germany, half repurposed by Stalin's inner circle to acquire experimental aviation components. Imagine a seesaw where each side thinks it's winning, only to realize they've both been played. It's like getting invited to a potluck dinner and discovering you're both cooking the same dish, and no one's tasted it yet. Now let's pause for a moment. Who could resist the irony here? Two sworn enemies exchanging dynamite-grade resources like polite neighbors swapping gardening tools. And all of this orchestrated with the precision of a Swiss watch, no pun intended. As one archivist quipped, it's financial espionage at its finest. Who knew gold bars could be so chatty? By now, the curtain has fallen on the grand deception. We have decrypted cables, sworn testimony, ledger matches, diary entries, tribunal transcripts, and Swiss banking memos, each piece fitting like jigsaw parts in a puzzle that spans continents. The climax and reveal isn't just a dramatic flourish, it's the moment we see how strategy, greed, and geopolitical rivalry converge to reshape the prelude to World War II. This isn't hearsay, it's documented history laid bare. Next, we'll tie these revelations back to modern investors and everyday audiences, extracting lessons about transparency, risk, and the unexpected costs of secrecy. But first, let all this sink in. Hitler's war chest was filled by the very hammer and sickle he vowed to destroy. Now onward to the final act. We're now at the moment to distill the deeper lessons from this secretive gold transaction. Behind the barbed wire of wartime politics lay a timeless lesson. When money flows without transparency, mistrust and unintended consequences follow. Modern investors might scoff at the idea of dictators bartering bullion in darkest night. But look closer. Hedge funds, offshore trusts, and shell companies still operate in shadows. If a single ledger discrepancy nearly rewrote history in 1938, what could a similar blind spot cost you today? First, due diligence isn't optional. It's the compass that keeps your portfolio from straying into peril. Whether you're vetting a startup's balance sheet or reviewing a bank's reserve disclosures, ask the hard questions. Who really holds the assets? Second, complexity can mask risk. Those offshore trusts and layered shell corporations might sound legitimate, but they're often the smokescreens hiding systemic vulnerabilities. And third, guard against groupthink. Even seasoned regulators in Berlin and Moscow missed critical red flags because they assumed state actors would play by diplomatic rules. Ask yourself, what covert Project Aurora might be unfolding behind closed doors in today's markets? Could digital currencies or complex derivatives be the modern equivalents of those gold ingots, quietly shaping geopolitical power? History shows that secrecy may confer short-term advantage, but the long game belongs to transparency and accountability. When fortunes are built on hidden channels, trust erodes, creating cracks that can widen into full-blown crises. At its heart, the Nazi-Soviet gold swap reminds us that finance is as human as it is numerical, driven by ambition, fear, and the desire for leverage. Whether you're managing personal savings or leading a multinational investment firm, remember that clarity trumps gloss, and skepticism can be a healthy defense. Treat every offer that sounds too good to be true as you would that suspicious free lunch, with suspicion and a sharpened eyebrow. So what's the takeaway? In a world where offshore accounts and secret cables still lurk in the shadows, your best ally is knowledge. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history's golden underbelly, give us a like to fuel the research, drop a comment telling us which mystery you want solved next, and smash that subscribe button right now for more financial thrillers. Stay tuned for our upcoming expose on the enigmatic currency swaps that finance international espionage. Because truth is stranger than fiction. Until then, keep your eyes open and your vaults even harder to crack. And share this video with a friend who loves financial mysteries. Let's unravel history together.